A billionaire CEO walks into a restroom and finds a cleaning lady asleep on the toilet. This isn't how love stories usually begin, but in one unexpected moment, two strangers from opposite worlds discover something rare, a connection that defies status, power, and every rule. What happens next will change them both forever. This is more than a chance encounter. It's a collision of hearts. And it starts now.
A millionaire CEO enters his bathroom and finds a cleaning lady fast asleep on the toilet lid. Despite the awkward situation, he falls head over heels for her. Before we dive into the story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Sofia Martinez was at a breaking point. She'd been working non-stop for a week, cleaning hotel rooms during the day and covering a lazy co-worker's night shift. She felt like a zombie, barely hanging on. The VIP suite was her final task of the day, and all she wanted was to finish it and go home. She stepped into the bathroom, which was massive, way bigger than her entire apartment. Who needs a bathroom this big? Does it echo? She grumbled to herself as she started cleaning. She went through the motions, scrubbing away without thinking. But exhaustion took over. She rested her head on her arm for just a second, and that second turned into a full-on nap, right on top of the toilet lid. Meanwhile, Ethan Carter had wrapped up a long day of meetings. All he wanted was some peace and a hot shower. He headed to his suite, quickly stripped off his suit, and went straight to the bathroom, ready to unwind. Without looking, he opened the door, stepped inside, and nearly had a heart attack. What the hell? His voice echoed loudly, nearly cracking the mirrors. There, resting on the toilet lid, was a woman in a hotel uniform, fast asleep. He was so shocked, he almost threw his shirt at her like it was some kind of exorcism. Sofia woke up to the most terrifying scream she'd ever heard. She jumped, lost her balance, and fell to the floor, knocking over her cleaning supplies. Oh my God, what's happening? Ethan was so startled, he jumped back like she was some sort of ghost. Who are you? And what are you doing in my room? Sofia blinked at him, trying to process what was going on. The tall, shirtless man with intense eyes was definitely good looking, but she was too confused to notice that right away. The fancy bathroom, the soap scent, her hotel uniform, it all hit her in a rush. She froze and blurted out, "I didn't rob you, I swear." Ethan stared at her, confused. "What? I just fell asleep here." Sofia raised her hands, almost like she was surrendering to a cop. "I was just cleaning and..." Ethan crossed his arms. "And you decided to take a nap in my bathroom? Is that how you clean?" Sofia's voice wavered. She was in trouble now. "It's not exactly like that." "Well, it kind of is, but..." Ethan rubbed his forehead, trying to stay calm. "So now my bathroom's your nap spot?" "It was just a quick nap. A 30-minute nap on the toilet? It was only 5 minutes. Do you have a timer in your head or something?" "Sir, I know this looks bad, but I worked 2 shifts. My body just shut down." Ethan took a deep breath. He really wanted to be mad. He should have been. But the whole situation was so absurd that he just couldn't. The woman in front of him looked embarrassed, flushed with shame, her hair a mess, staring at him like her entire future depended on how he responded. And then, he did something unexpected. He crossed his arms and walked out of the bathroom, heading toward the kitchen. Sofia quickly followed. He stopped, turned to her with a serious expression, and asked, "Do you drink coffee?" Sofia blinked. "Huh? Do you drink it?" "Yes. But what does that have to do with..." He picked up a cup from the counter and handed it to her. "Try it." Still confused, Sofia took the cup and sniffed the coffee. Her face twisted in disgust. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "This is terrible. You could tell just by the smell?" Sofia hesitated. Yes." Ethan's eyes lit up with curiosity. Ethan Carter, the guy who was always focused on business, was actually intrigued. Sofia, who just wanted to finish her job and leave, had no idea what was about to happen. She held the coffee cup like it might explode at any second. Ethan, arms crossed, stared at her like she was some kind of puzzle he was trying to solve. She didn't know how to respond. "So, am I fired?" she asked, almost whispering. Ethan tilted his head as though he was considering it. Sofia's legs almost gave out when he replied, "I haven't decided yet." "You haven't?" He grabbed the cup back, eyeing the dark liquid. "Before I decide, explain to me how you knew this coffee was awful without even tasting it." "It's obvious," she said with a grin. "It smells burnt, and the beans were over-roasted, which makes it too bitter. Looks like someone tried to fix it with sugar, but that just made it worse." Ethan scrunched his nose. "And you figured all that out just from the smell?" Sofia opened her mouth to respond but stopped. "Wait, why are you so interested in this? I swear, I don't do this all the time." Ethan stayed silent for a moment, staring at her as if she was a problem he was dying to solve. Then, he stepped back and leaned against the counter. "Perfect. You're going to help me fix this." Sofia blinked. "I'm going to what?" The hotel's coffee is awful. I've complained, but no one can fix it. If you can tell what's wrong by the smell, maybe you can figure out what's wrong with the food too. Sophia laughed sarcastically. Oh, sure, because that's totally what cleaning staff does. Well, now it is. She didn't respond. Sorry, but I just clean. Food isn't my thing. Ethan shrugged. Not anymore. Now it is. Sophia stared at him like he'd just suggested she jump out of an airplane without a parachute. I can't just suddenly become a food expert. But you don't have to, he said, pointing at the cup. You already are. Sophia opened and closed her mouth, more confused than ever. Was he joking? His expression said otherwise. Mr. Carter, right? Look, I appreciate it, but I need my job. Ethan frowned. Who said I'm firing you? Sophia paused, unsure. Was this some sort of test? She was convinced she was about to lose her job, and now the CEO of the hotel was asking her to help with the food? It didn't make sense. Is this a test? If I say no, will you fire me? Ethan sighed, already over the back and forth. If I was going to fire you, I would have done it already. Now, come on. You've got a breakfast to taste. Sophia blinked a few times, completely taken aback. What? Do you want to keep arguing or just get this over with? She knew she should have said no, but for some reason, Ethan hadn't let her go yet. Maybe there was still a chance to save her job. She let out a heavy sigh. Fine, but if this is some plan to fire me later, I swear. Less drama. More coffee, he interrupted. Sophia had no idea how she ended up in this situation. 1 minute, she was arguing with the CEO in his bathroom, and the next, she was sitting at one of the best tables in the hotel restaurant, surrounded by fancy dishes she was supposed to taste. Ethan sat across from her, arms crossed. All right, try them and tell me what you think. She glanced at the plates, then back at him. You want me to eat all of this? You work double shifts, right? When was the last time you ate? Sophia opened her mouth to answer but realized she couldn't even remember. The silence spoke for her. Exactly. Now, eat, Ethan urged. Sophia hesitated but finally picked up a fork and tasted the first dish. She scrunched up her face. The sauce is too acidic. It's like they used too much lemon to cover up something that went wrong. Ethan nodded, clearly agreeing with her. She tried a piece of beef next and wrinkled her nose. It's overcooked, and the seasoning doesn't match the dish at all. She took a bite of another dish. Is this supposed to be sweet or savory? Because right now, it's just confusing. Ethan leaned back in his chair, intrigued. She didn't just point out the mistakes, she explained what was wrong. And for the first time in a while, he was impressed. Sophia wiped her mouth and looked at him. Okay, can I go now? Ethan tilted his head. Have you ever thought about working with food? You mean eating bad food? She laughed. No, identifying it, he replied. What? You have a rare talent. Most people wouldn't notice half of the mistakes you just pointed out. Sophia shrugged. It's just a silly trick. Doesn't mean anything. Ethan stared at her like she'd just said the most ridiculous thing. I bet people have said that about you before. Sophia opened her mouth but didn't say anything. He was right. Ethan stood up and adjusted his sleeves. Tomorrow morning, you're coming with me to the kitchen. I want you to taste a few ingredients. Sophia's expression changed. What? And don't try to run. I know where you work. Sophia nearly fell out of her chair. Are you insane? Ethan chuckled for the first time that night. Not yet, but give it time. Sophia spent the entire night trying to figure out what had just happened. She should have been fired. Any normal person would have been shown the door right away for sleeping on the CEO's toilet. But somehow, not only had she kept her job, but now she was part of this bizarre plan to improve the hotel's breakfast. Did it make sense? No. Did she want to be part of it? Also no. But Ethan Carter wasn't the type of guy who took no for an answer. So, the next morning, she dragged herself to the hotel kitchen, mentally begging herself not to do anything that would get her officially fired. Sophia pushed open the kitchen door and found Ethan standing next to the head chef. Ethan glanced at his watch, then at her. You're late. Sophia let out a sigh. If you're going to fire me, just do it now, she said, almost resigned. I only got 3 hours of sleep, she replied dryly. Ethan smirked. You'll survive. Now, come here. Marco, the head chef, was a tall, broad-shouldered man who gave Sophia a skeptical look as he crossed his arms. Is this the cleaning lady? He asked, clearly not impressed. What is she doing here? Saving the hotel breakfast, Ethan said bluntly. Marco frowned. With all due respect, Mr. Carter, my team is highly trained. I don't think we need the opinion of a cleaner. Sophia froze. She already felt out of place here, and now she had to deal with a chef who treated her like a joke. Ethan didn't even flinch. I tried the food yesterday. If your team was as qualified as you say, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Sophia felt like hiding under the counter. The silence that followed was thick with tension. Marco gritted his teeth, obviously upset. What does Miss Martinez think about my kitchen? Ethan gestured to her. Find out for yourself. Sophia blinked. What? You said the coffee was bad. Now tell me what's wrong with the other dishes. Marco let out a sarcastic laugh. Great. Let's hear what the mop specialist has to say. Sophia's face flushed. What a jerk. But if he wanted a show, she'd give him one. Taking a deep breath, she picked up a spoon and tried the first dish, chewing slowly as she analyzed the flavors. The scrambled eggs are dry. You used low-quality butter, and the salt is off. Marco crossed his arms. What else? Sophia grabbed a slice of bread and took a bite. The bread isn't fresh. It was either baked yesterday or stored wrong. Then she picked up a glass of juice and took a sip, grimacing. This is a disaster. Marco raised an eyebrow. And why is that? Because someone mixed fresh orange juice with the store-bought kind and added a hefty dose of disappointment. Ethan tried to hide a smile, but Marco looked like he was about to blow a gasket. All right, Miss Martinez, what advice would you give with all your intelligence? Sophia paused and then turned to Ethan. Can I speak my mind? Or am I risking my life? Ethan chuckled. Speak freely. She turned back to Marco. This is a 5-star hotel. Guests expect high-quality food. But this breakfast tastes like something you'd get at an airport cafeteria. If you want my opinion, update your ingredients. Use real butter, fresh bread, farm eggs. Marco clenched his jaw. That costs money. And bad food costs customers, she shot back. Marco turned bright red. Ethan, however, seemed to be enjoying the show. It's settled then. We'll put Miss Martinez's suggestions to the test. Marco looked like he might explode. It's an insult. I've got years of experience, and this girl just came from cleaning. Ethan shrugged. And yet, she pointed out every problem with your food in under 5 minutes. Marco snapped his mouth shut. Ethan turned to Sophia. Well done. Now, get some rest. Sophia walked out of the restaurant, feeling like she had just completed a marathon. But for the first time, it felt like she had actually accomplished something, no matter how simple it was, like preparing breakfast. Later, she was folding sheets in the laundry room when Nancy burst in, out of breath. Sophia! Sophia! Sophia looked up, confused. What is it? They're saying you humiliated the cook in front of the CEO, Nancy said, wide-eyed. Sophia grimaced. I just told the truth. Nancy's eyes got even bigger. And he let you walk away alive? More or less, Sophia replied, trying to keep her cool. Nancy grabbed her shoulders, her voice dropping to a whisper. Do you sleep with him? Sophia nearly choked on her own saliva. What? People think he promoted you because you two are having an affair, Nancy said with a wink. Sophia buried her face in her hands. I'm going to disappear under these sheets and never come out. Before she could do that, the door to the laundry room opened. Marco, the chef, stepped in. Miss Martinez. Sophia froze. Marco took a deep breath. Hi. He sounded nervous. I just wanted to say I was an idiot this morning, Marco said. Sophia blinked. Was Marco apologizing? He held out his hand. Can I count on your feedback when we try new dishes? Sophia glanced at his hand, then over at Nancy, who looked even more surprised than she was. She sighed and shook Marco's hand. As long as I don't have to do the dishes afterward, she said, giving him a half smile. Marco laughed. Deal. Nancy suppressed a shriek, clearly shocked by the turn of events. Somehow, Sophia had recently been promoted at the hotel. She had no idea where this would take her, but she was still trying to wrap her head around it. Sophia was still in disbelief over what had happened that morning. She, a regular housekeeper, had confronted the hotel's top chef, cooked breakfast, and somehow survived it all. Not only had she lived, but she was now officially considered a culinary expert. The news spread quickly, and before long, rumors were flying through the hotel. What started as Sophia slept in the CEO's bathroom quickly became Sophia and the CEO shared a private moment in the bathroom. And by noon, it escalated to Sophia is secretly having an affair with the boss and now has free access to the kitchen. As she was changing the bedding in one of the rooms, she tried to ignore the weird looks and whispers, but it was impossible. So, you're the hotel's new favorite now, Jane, one of the receptionists said, crossing her arms. Sophia sighed and turned around. I'm the new official taster of terrible food. That's all. Jane raised an eyebrow. Funny. No one gets promoted so fast in this hotel. Sophia rolled her eyes. You must think I did something really special to get Mr. Carter's attention, huh? Jane smirked. Do I need to spell it out? Sophia sighed heavily. I slept in his bathroom, and instead of firing me, he made me drink terrible coffee. That's the whole story. Jane arched an eyebrow, clearly not convinced. Sure, I totally believe that was all that happened. Sophia took a deep breath. Look, I'd love to stay and listen to your wild theories, but I've got a job to do. Excuse me. She grabbed her cleaning cart and started walking down the hall before Jane could say anything else. All she wanted now was for Ethan to leave her alone. Hopefully, he had forgotten all about his crazy plan to have her taste even more meals and let her go back to her normal life. But deep down, she knew better. Ethan Carter never forgot anything. Late in the afternoon, just as Sophia was about to leave and finally get some rest, she received a message from Nancy. "Chef Marco needs to speak with you in the kitchen." Sophia groaned. "You'd better leave before he throws you in the soup pot. This never ends," she muttered to herself. When she entered the kitchen, Marco was waiting with his arms crossed. But this time, he didn't seem like he was about to attack her. "Mr. Carter wants to meet you at the restaurant now." Sophia sighed again. "Does he never get tired?" Marco smirked. "You're still breathing, so I guess not." Resigned, Sophia made her way to the restaurant, where she found Ethan sitting at a table, looking over a menu with the same intensity as a stock market investor. "I should start charging for these consultations," Sophia said, pulling out a chair and sitting without waiting for an invitation. Ethan looked up at her. "Very funny. I try." He put the menu down and gave her a thoughtful look. "I have a proposal for you." Sophia blinked. "That doesn't sound good." "You'll like it," he replied, ignoring her skepticism. "There's a big culinary event happening in Paris next week." Sophia just stared at him, waiting for something that made sense. "Okay, and?" she asked. "I'd like you to join me." Sophia blinked again. What? You heard me," Ethan said, leaning back slightly. "I want you to join me." She couldn't help but laugh, disbelief written all over her face. Wait, you want me to go with you to some fancy culinary event in Paris?" "Exactly." Sophia laughed even harder. "I'm a housekeeper, Carter. I clean rooms, scrub toilets. You want me to go to Paris just to tell you whether a dish is bad?" Ethan leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, his expression serious. "You have a unique talent, an exceptional palate, something most people don't have. I want you to help me find the best chefs and ingredients." Sophia shook her head in disbelief. "I don't even know where to start with how crazy this is. First, I shouldn't even be here. Second, who says I know what I'm doing?" "I do," Ethan replied, his voice firm. She opened her mouth to protest, but the conviction in his eyes stopped her. He really believed in her, and that made her uncomfortable. Ethan frowned. "Why can't you accept?" "Why not?" he asked. Because this is insane. "I have no idea about these events," she said, struggling to explain. "I didn't either the first time I went," Ethan said. She scoffed. "That's different. You're a CEO, and you have a gift." Sophia didn't know what to say. Had anyone ever said anything like that to her before? Had anyone ever really believed in her? She looked down at the table, trying to collect her thoughts. "I have a job here," she finally said. Ethan leaned in. "I'll pay you twice what you make at the hotel." Her eyes widened in shock. "What?" "It's only fair, since you'll be helping me," Ethan explained. She still couldn't believe it was happening. "I can't just drop everything." "You don't have to," Ethan replied. "It's just a 3-day trip." Sophia bit her lip, trying to ignore the feeling that she was walking right into a trap. But, at the same time, when would she ever get another opportunity like this? "I need to think," she said. Ethan nodded. "That's fine. But don't take too long." Sophia walked out of the restaurant feeling like the ground had just disappeared beneath her. Was she really considering this? Was she crazy enough to travel with Ethan Carter? Maybe she was, but she wasn't ready to admit it yet. She spent the rest of the day trying to push the thought out of her mind. She focused on her work, folding sheets, cleaning rooms, but every time someone mentioned Ethan Carter's name, a strange chill ran down her spine. Had he really made that ridiculous offer? To her? In Paris? As if she were important? As if she were more than just some employee who had accidentally caught his attention? Every time she thought about it, the most logical conclusion seemed to be, he was just messing with her. There was no other explanation. But when her shift ended and she went back to her small rented apartment, she collapsed onto the couch and stared at the ceiling. The trip was only 3 days. 3 days. If she said yes, she'd be getting on a plane with Ethan to attend an event where she knew no one, didn't understand the rules, and would probably end up feeling like a total fool. But what if she said no? Sophia closed her eyes and took a deep breath. It was an opportunity that might never come again. For years, she'd been told she was only good for hard labor. No one had ever looked at her and said, "You're talented." No one had ever believed in her. And now Ethan Carter, the hotel's CEO, was calling her extraordinary. He wanted her to help him find the best chefs and dishes, even if he was wrong. For the first time, Sophia wanted to believe that there was something valuable inside her. Without thinking it through any further, she grabbed her phone and typed, "Okay, I'm in." Seconds later, he responded, "Great, prepare for the journey." Sophia let out a long sigh. What exactly was she getting herself into? The day of the trip arrived much faster than she expected. She woke up before her alarm, packed her bag with clothes she'd borrowed from Nancy, who had insisted, "If you're traveling with a billionaire, at least try to look rich," and made her way to the airport with sweaty palms. Ethan was waiting in the VIP room, looking as polished as ever. He seemed completely at ease, like this was just another ordinary day for him. "Sophia, on the other hand, felt like she was in some bizarre dream. "You're on time. That's a miracle," Ethan said as she walked up. Sophia rolled her eyes. "I thought about running away, but my bank account convinced me to stay." Ethan chuckled. "That's the spirit." Before she could think about it too much, she was ushered onto the plane. But of course, this wasn't just any plane. She'd flown before, but always in economy class, praying she wouldn't be stuck next to someone snoring. Now, she was on a luxurious jet with comfortable leather seats, gourmet food, and plenty of space. "Okay," she said, looking around in awe. "This is way nicer than the flying buses I'm used to." Ethan gave a slight smile. "I'm glad you're impressed." Sophia sank into her seat, letting out a breath. "Good to know I'm already impressing you." "You don't have to impress me, Carter," she replied with a smirk. "You just need to make sure I don't embarrass myself in Paris." "No promises," he said, looking at her with amusement. She turned to face him. "Do you really like torturing me?" Ethan's smile widened. "It's one of my favorite pastimes." Sophia closed her eyes briefly as the jet took off, feeling a flutter of butterflies in her stomach. She was actually heading to Paris with Ethan Carter. Nothing in her life had ever felt this surreal. The hotel they were staying in looked like something straight out of a movie. Sophia hesitated to touch anything. The gold-trimmed furniture, the dazzling chandeliers, the rich carpets, all of it seemed too expensive. But the worst part was yet to come. That night, Ethan took her to an exclusive dinner before the big event, and Sophia realized she was in way over her head. The room was filled with people from a world she could never be a part of. Women in long gowns and sky-high heels, men in tailored suits, all holding wine glasses and speaking French like they were movie stars. Sophia, in her borrowed gown, felt like a total imposter among them. Ethan, however, seemed perfectly at ease. He moved through the crowd effortlessly, greeting high-profile guests and chatting with renowned chefs, while Sophia tried to act like she knew what she was doing. But then the moment she'd been dreading arrived. "Miss Martinez, correct?" A middle-aged man approached, smiling warmly. Sophia blinked. Yes. Ethan mentioned you have a special talent for identifying flavors." She shot a glare at Ethan, who just grinned innocently. She hesitated. The man picked up a wine glass and handed it to her. "Then tell us, what year is this wine from?" Sophia stared at the glass like it was poison. Ethan just crossed his arms, clearly enjoying the situation. "Don't look at me like that. This is part of your job now." Sophia gritted her teeth and took a small sip. The wine was rich and full-bodied, but there was something unique about it. She assessed the flavor and, without thinking, said, "This was aged in oak barrels, but it has a fruity undertone. It's a recent vintage, maybe 3 years old." The man's eyes widened. Sophia froze. "Exactly. What?" she muttered, confused. "You got it right," he said, impressed. Ethan smiled, clearly pleased. "See? I knew you had a gift." Sophia stared at the glass, feeling like it had just revealed the mysteries of the universe. Had she actually gotten it right? Maybe this wasn't such a mistake after all. As the evening went on, Sophia was introduced to more and more people, and with each dish she tasted, her confidence grew. When they finally returned to the hotel at the end of the night, Ethan glanced at her with an amused smile. "I admit it, you surprised me." Sophia scoffed. "I surprised myself." He stopped in front of her, tilting his head. "Do you still think you don't belong in this world?" Sophia stared at him for a long moment. For the first time, she didn't know what to say. Maybe she did belong here. Maybe she had spent too long believing she wasn't good enough. Ethan continued to study her for a few seconds before offering a slight smile. "You have talent, Martinez, and now that I know it, I won't let you go." Sophia felt a chill run down her spine. Ethan Carter never said anything by accident. It hit her all at once. This trip could have big consequences for her career. It could change everything. The next morning, Sophia woke up feeling like she was still in a dream. She was in Paris, staying in a 5-star hotel, with a millionaire CEO who, for some odd reason, thought she was talented. If someone had told her that just a week ago, she would have laughed in their face and told them to get help. But now, here she was, lying in the most luxurious bed she had ever slept in, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how her life had flipped upside down so quickly. Sighing, she got up and walked over to the window. The view of the city took her breath away. Historic buildings, busy streets, charming cafes. It was like something out of a movie. And Sophia Martinez was right in the middle of it. A notification pinged on her phone. It was from Ethan. "Breakfast at 8. Don't be late." Sophia rolled her eyes. Not even in Paris does he give a break. Despite her internal complaints, she took a quick shower, got dressed, and headed downstairs to meet him. Ethan was already seated at a table in the hotel restaurant, absorbed in his phone. "Do you always show up first?" she asked as she sat down. He looked up and flashed her a smirk. "They call it timeliness. Some call it efficiency." She picked up the menu. "And I call it unbearable." He left. The waiter came over, and Ethan ordered a black coffee. Sophia, on the other hand, asked for a croissant and hot cocoa. Not a coffee fan? Ethan raised an eyebrow. I like it, but we're in Paris, she said. The hot chocolate here is practically a work of art. He didn't argue. Instead, watching her take her first sip, she closed her eyes and sighed. My God, this is good. Ethan smiled and shook his head. You definitely take eating seriously. Well, you did bring me here for that, right? True. They ate breakfast leisurely, and Sophia noticed that, for the first time, Ethan's company didn't feel so strange. It almost felt natural. When they were done, Ethan paid and stood up. We've got a busy day ahead. Don't tell me I'm going to have to try more mysterious wine, she groaned. He laughed. Today is all about food. We'll be tasting dishes with some of France's top chefs. Sophia's eyes lit up. That sounds intense. You'll survive. She smirked but followed him. The tastings were held in a private room at the culinary festival, where famous chefs prepared delicacies for a select group of attendees. Sophia tried dishes she had never even imagined, refined flavors and sophisticated techniques. And to her surprise, she realized she knew exactly what she was doing. She pointed out minor mistakes, identified secret ingredients, and even suggested adjustments that took some chefs by surprise. Ethan watched her the entire time, his expression a mix of satisfaction and curiosity. After the ceremony, as they walked down the hall, an elegant woman approached. Tall, blonde, and wearing a tight, expensive dress, she smiled confidently. Sophia didn't recognize her, but she instantly knew the type. Someone from Ethan's world. Ethan Carter, the woman said, smiling brightly. Long time no see. Ethan returned the smile politely. Camille, I didn't expect to see you here. Paris is my second home, dear. And you? Camille asked, eyeing Sophia. Sophia felt a shiver run down her spine as Camille's gaze moved slowly from head to toe. And who is this? Camille asked, her tone dripping with curiosity. Sophia Martinez, Ethan explained casually. She's working with me. Camille smiled, but there was something cold about it. Oh, how fascinating. And how does she work with you? Sophia felt her stomach twist. She understood exactly what the woman was implying. Ethan looked at Camille, his expression hardening slightly. Sophia has a unique talent for flavors, he said, his voice firm. Camille feigned surprise as she looked at Sophia. How curious. I swore she was. Sophia clenched her fists, knowing exactly where Camille's words were headed. Ethan noticed the tension in Sophia's body and gently placed his hand on her back in a protective gesture. It was good to see you, Camille, he said, effectively ending the conversation. Camille gave Sophia one last look, half disdain, half amusement, before smiling and walking away. Sophia exhaled, realizing she had been holding her breath. Ethan turned to her. Ignore it. Sophia crossed her arms, her frustration bubbling up. You understood what she was implying, right? Yes, Ethan replied, and that's why you shouldn't worry about it. Sophia's gaze dropped to the floor. It's easy for you to say. You're a billionaire, and you're intelligent. So don't worry, he said softly, his voice reassuring. Sophia wanted to believe him, but a part of her knew that people like Camille would never see her as anything other than an outsider. Later that night, as Sophia sat alone at the hotel bar, she noticed Camille talking to Ethan from across the room. And to her surprise and dismay, they seemed very close. She shouldn't care. It didn't make sense to care. But as Camille touched Ethan's arm and he smiled in return, Sophia felt something twist uncomfortably in her chest. Without thinking, she stood up and left the room, not wanting to figure out what that feeling was. A few minutes later, she was in her room, sitting on the bed, trying to convince herself that it meant nothing. But her heart didn't believe it. For the first time, she realized she might be developing feelings for Ethan Carter. Sophia spent the rest of the night battling the uneasy feeling in her chest. She told herself over and over that it didn't matter, that she didn't care, but each time she closed her eyes, the image of Ethan and Camille together flashed in her mind. The way Camille touched his arm, how he smiled back at her, it all felt like they belonged to a different world. And Sophia? What was she doing there? She felt like a kid playing in an executive's office, like a side character in a movie filled with wealthy, intelligent people. Now that she was there, she couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was just waiting for her to make a mistake so they could throw her out. And maybe that's exactly what she should do. Sophia woke up with the sun, having made a decision. She grabbed her phone and texted Ethan, I guess I should go home. Thank you for the opportunity, but I don't fit in this world. She stared at the screen for a moment before hitting send. Done. Now, just wait. But the reply came too quickly. Meet me at the restaurant in 10 minutes. Sophia sighed. Great. She dressed slowly, hesitating, and then headed downstairs to the restaurant. Ethan was already there, sipping coffee with a somber expression on his face. Good morning, she said, sitting across from him. Do you think you can just send me that message and get away? he asked. I'm not running away. I'm being realistic. Ethan crossed his arms. Realistic? Yes. Look, Ethan, I appreciate everything you've done, but it doesn't make sense for me to stay here. He studied her for a long time before tilting his head. This is about Camille. Sophia's stomach dropped. What? No? Of course not. Ethan smiled knowingly. You disappeared right after you saw us talking. I was just tired. Martinez, you're not good at lying. She rolled her eyes and grabbed a slice of bread, buttering it to avoid the conversation. It has nothing to do with that. I just think accepting this trip was a mistake. Why? Ethan asked, leaning forward. She dropped the bread and looked him straight in the eye. Because I am not like you, Ethan. I'm not sophisticated. I don't speak French. I don't know how to act at these events. I saw how Camille looked at me, how everyone looks at me. Ethan groaned and rubbed his face in frustration. Is that it? You want to resign because a few snooty people can't accept the fact that you're more gifted than them? I'm not more talented than anyone. You are, Ethan insisted. Sophia stayed silent. Ethan leaned over the table, his eyes fixed on hers. Do you think I brought you here for nothing? I don't waste my time with people who don't matter. Her heart raced. He hardly ever complimented anyone, and when he did, it was blunt. He really believed in her, and it made her want to trust him. Then Ethan stood up and placed a card on the table. You've got until noon to decide if you want to leave. There's a flight back home reserved for you. But if you want to stay, meet me in the main hall at 3 p.m. Sophia stared at the card before looking back at him. Ethan held her gaze for a moment before walking out of the restaurant. She took a deep breath. What now? Staying meant dealing with a world that didn't accept her, but leaving meant admitting she was running away. Sophia Martinez had never run from anything. At 3 p.m., she was in the main hall. When Ethan saw her, he didn't smile, but his look was one of satisfaction. Good. Now stop acting like you don't deserve to be here and come with me. For the first time since her arrival, Sophia made the choice to do just that. That afternoon's event was one of the most important at the food conference. Ethan had meetings with investors, and Sophia was assigned to a panel discussion about emerging international culinary talent. She was determined to learn everything she could, listening to the experts, paying attention to the subtleties, and figuring out what made a dish truly remarkable. But while she was taking notes, she overheard two women talking behind her. Have you seen the girl with Ethan Carter? Yeah. They say he picked up a cleaning lady and brought her to Paris. Sophia felt her face flush. It must be a whim of his. Or maybe she has something special that he enjoys, if you know what I mean. The two women laughed. Sophia took a deep breath and closed her eyes. She wasn't about to let them bother her. She wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. Instead, she turned around with a smile and said, "Oh, thank you for being so concerned about my life. I'd love to continue this conversation, but I really need to get back to the panel. After all, I'm genuinely here to work. Can you say the same?" The women were left speechless. Sophia blinked, turned around, and returned her focus to the panel, feeling much better. She didn't have time for small-minded people. Later that night, when Sophia met Ethan, he noticed something different about her. What happened? He asked, studying her. She smiled. I think I finally understand why I'm here. He raised an eyebrow. So, why is that? Because I'm good at it. Ethan grinned. Finally, for the first time, Sophia felt lighter. She was there not because he had picked her, but because she wanted to be there. That made all the difference. Sophia never thought she'd feel so at ease in a world that, just a few days ago, seemed completely out of her reach. But there she was, sitting next to Ethan, analyzing meals with some of the world's best culinary critics. And for the first time, she didn't feel out of place. People still whispered behind her back. They still treated her like an outsider for being there. But Sophia didn't care anymore. People seemed to be more bothered by her presence than if she had just given up and left. The evening quickly arrived, and Ethan had planned a dinner for a small group of guests at an elite restaurant. The setting was stunning. The food was flawless, and the wine flowed freely. Sophia struggled to keep up with the conversations surrounding her, but she realized she didn't have to. She already knew which ingredients were used in each dish. She could identify the techniques behind the preparations. She was learning, and Ethan knew it. You're more confident, Ethan remarked after the server brought dessert. Do I appear more confident? Or am I finally? She trailed off. Ethan smiled. Both. Sophia picked up her fork and sliced a piece of the dessert in front of her. What's wrong? He asked, noticing her expression. Just satisfied. Why? He leaned slightly toward the table, his gaze locked on her. Because I knew you were skilled at this. I was just waiting for you to see it too, he said. Sophia felt warmth rise to her face, but she covered it by taking a sip of wine. The dinner continued smoothly until Camille walked in. She looked flawless and confident, like she had just stepped out of a fashion magazine. She sat down as if she were the hostess and flashed a sharp smile at Sophia. Darling, what a surprise to see you here. Sophia smiled back and said, I'm no longer a surprise. Is that what you think? Camille said, raising an eyebrow. Ethan cleared his throat, breaking the tension between them. What brings you here, Camille? She swirled her wine in the glass and grinned. A friendly warning. Sophia crossed her arms. That sounds interesting. Camille looked at Ethan and then back at Sophia. You realize this world is a game. As much as you enjoy challenging yourself, there are things that just don't fit. Sophia caught Camille's brief, dismissive glance at her. Ethan remained calm, his expression hardening. Camille, I'm tired of your little games. If you have something to say it now. Camille leaned forward slightly, her smile widening. Have you considered how this could affect your image? Bringing a cleaning lady to Paris, presenting her as if she were an expert. People talk, Ethan. And believe me, not everyone is happy about it. Sophia's blood boiled, but before she could speak up, Ethan cut her off. Who cares what they say? He said, his tone firm. Camille laughed, as if he were being naive. You, darling. Deep down, you've always cared. You wouldn't be where you are if you didn't know how to play the game. Ethan held her gaze for a moment before replying with a slight smile. Funny. I've always believed the game is about talent. Sophia has that in spades. Camille rolled her eyes. Do you really think that's enough? Sophia, who had been holding back until now, decided it was time to speak. Camille, let me ask you something. The blonde looked at her, surprised that she'd jumped into the conversation. What exactly is bothering you so much? The fact that I'm here, or the fact that you can't bring me down? The room fell silent. Camille's face tightened for a brief moment before softening into a smile. You think you're quite clever, don't you? I'm smart, and you know it, Sophia replied. Ethan smiled, clearly enjoying the exchange. Camille took a deep breath and glanced at him again. Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you. She stood, adjusted her outfit, and left the restaurant without looking back. Sophia sighed and took a sip of wine. If she's going to be a recurring problem, I'll need a raise. Ethan laughed and raised his glass. Are you already negotiating salary? I'm learning quickly, she replied with a grin. They toasted, but Sophia knew this wasn't over. Camille wasn't the type to accept defeat. Sophia sensed this was just the first of many subtle threats. If there was one thing she had learned about this world, it was that enemies didn't attack head-on. They waited. They planned. And when you least expected it, they struck. Sophia wasn't going to let that happen. She was ready to fight. The next day, she could feel something had shifted. It wasn't just Camille. The atmosphere had changed. Before, people had watched her with curiosity, expecting her to fail. Now, the animosity was more overt. She could sense it in her bones. She had become a problem. At an exclusive culinary event, she and Ethan entered the hall, and the whispering began again. But this time, it wasn't just hushed chatter. People were speaking openly. I heard she was a maid at his hotel. He brought an amateur to Paris and pretended she was an expert. Of course, there's another reason she's here. Sophia felt anger rise within her, but she kept her composure. She wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of losing control. Ethan, however, was far from calm. He clenched his jaw and shot a stern look at the people around them. They quickly averted their gazes, no longer daring to gossip. Sophia, ignore them, he said, his voice firm. Easy for you to say, she muttered. He turned to her, his voice taking on a hard edge. Do you want to prove you belong here? Then pretend you don't care about these idiots. The only way to win this game is to stop playing by their rules. Sophia took a deep breath. He was right. If she let their remarks affect her, she'd be confirming their opinions. She lifted her chin, ignored the stares, and walked confidently into the room with Ethan. The true surprise of the night came when they were introduced to Jacques Moreau, one of the world's top food critics. Mr. Carter, it's good to see you again, the elderly Frenchman said, shaking Ethan's hand and then moving toward Sophia. And you must be Sophia Martinez. Sophia blinked in astonishment. Have you heard of me? Oh, ma chère. The whole of Paris has heard of you, Moreau remarked, chuckling. Sophia felt her face warm. The whole of Paris? Moreau laughed at her surprised expression. People love a scandal, especially when it challenges the system. But I prefer facts. He handed her a sample plate. So, tell me, what do you think of this dish? Her heart raced. Everyone around them paused to watch. She picked up her fork, tasted the food, and closed her eyes to analyze each flavor. Taking a deep breath, she confidently said, the dish is technically perfect, but it's predictable. The sauce is classic, but it lacks some freshness. Perhaps a citrusy accent to balance the richness. Silence. Sophia held her breath, expecting mockery or laughter, but instead, Moreau smiled. Interesting. She blinked. Interesting. How? He returned the plate to the waiter and crossed his arms. Because you're right. More silence followed. This time, there were no mocking looks. There was respect. Ethan smiled, clearly satisfied. I told you she was good. Moreau nodded, clearly impressed. Mademoiselle Martinez, I'll be following your career with great interest. He walked away, and Sophia exhaled, not realizing she had been holding her breath. Ethan leaned in close to her. Now they know you're not playing around. She wasn't sure if she felt relieved or if there was more weight on her shoulders. But for the first time, she felt like she had won a battle. The problem was, once you start winning in this dangerous game, people tend to play dirtier. Sophia had no idea what was coming next. The next morning, she received a message from an unknown number. If you want to know the truth about Ethan Carter, come to the hotel bar at 3 p.m. alone. Sophia frowned. What the hell was that? She immediately forwarded the message to Ethan, who replied quickly and unexpectedly, "Don't go." Sophia stared at her phone, a shiver running down her spine. If Ethan didn't want her to go, it meant something was off. She needed to know the truth. So, at 3 p.m., she was at the hotel bar, waiting. Camille showed up. "Oh, so you came," Camille said, taking a seat and reaching for a glass of wine. Sophia crossed her arms. "I'm curious." Camille smiled. "Martinez, you're smart, but you still don't understand this world. And you think you'll teach me?" The blonde chuckled and shook her head. "I don't need to teach you anything. I just need to show you something." She pulled out her phone, swiped the screen, and turned it toward Sophia. It was a photo of Ethan and Camille, apparently having a romantic meal together. Sophia felt her stomach drop. "What is this? A supper? Do you think you're the first woman Ethan picks up and brings to Paris?" Sophia's jaw clenched. "What do you mean by that?" Camille grinned and leaned across the table. "Don't you get it? You're just a whim to him." Sophia wanted to laugh. She knew Camille was manipulative and wanted her to distrust Ethan. But on the other hand, why hadn't he mentioned Camille? Why hadn't he explained their connection? Camille noticed the hesitation and smiled. "Leave while you can, before he abandons you." Sophia stood up and grabbed her luggage. "Thanks for your concern, Camille. But if Ethan wants to dismiss me, he'll have to confront me and say so." She walked away without looking back, but her heart was racing. For the first time, doubt had been planted in her mind. She needed the truth. That night, when she returned to the hotel, Ethan was waiting for her in the hallway. "I told you not to go." Sophia crossed her arms. "And I went anyway." His eyes glinted with a mix of frustration and amusement. "I don't know if I admire you or want to lock you in a room until this trip is over." "Good luck trying," she replied. Ethan exhaled and scratched his neck. "What did she tell you?" Sophia studied him for a moment before speaking. "That I'm just a whim of yours." Ethan froze. She noticed the tightness in his jaw, but he quickly regained his composure. "So you believed it?" She paused. "I want to hear it from you." He stared at her for a long moment before stepping closer. "Martinez, if I wanted any woman by my side, I would have chosen one who didn't challenge me all the time." Her heart skipped a beat. "So, what am I to you?" Ethan looked at her, as if the question was absurd. "You're the woman who makes me break every rule I've set for myself." Sophia felt the air leave her lungs. But before she could react, he moved even closer and whispered, "And that scares me more than anything." She was speechless. That was the last answer she expected. Sophia's heart was thumping so hard that she was sure Ethan could hear it. He had just confessed that she had completely turned his life upside down. His well-managed, carefully planned life. Instead of feeling victorious, she felt a rush of vulnerability. She hadn't planned for this. She never meant to fall for someone like him. And now, standing in front of him, she wasn't sure what to do. Ethan watched her, waiting for a response, but she was speechless. After what felt like an eternity of silence, he stepped back. "You'd better get some rest," he said, his voice steady. But there was something in it she couldn't quite place. Disappointment? Frustration? She wasn't sure. He turned and walked down the hallway without saying another word, leaving her with a swirl of confused thoughts. She went to her room, locked the door, and collapsed onto the bed, running her hands over her face. What had happened to her? She'd never allowed herself to get close to anyone, knowing people would eventually leave. That had been her reality. But then Ethan had come into her life, thrown everything into chaos, and now he wanted her to believe him. It was terrifying. But her heart didn't want to run away, and that scared her even more. The next morning, Sophia tried to act normal. She got dressed, ate breakfast alone, and went to the culinary event like nothing had changed. But everything had. Ethan didn't show up for breakfast. He didn't send any messages. For the first time, she realized how much she missed him. The morning dragged on. She attended a few tastings, tried to avoid the looks from others, and pretended she didn't care about seeing Ethan. But he never showed up. It wasn't until late afternoon that the inevitable happened. She was in the main hall, analyzing a dish when she heard a voice beside her. "Looks like someone's been left out." Sophia closed her eyes briefly before turning around. Camille was standing there, wearing a smug expression. "What do you want now?" Sophia asked, crossing her arms. "I'm just checking in on you after your talk with Ethan last night. He seemed pretty distant." Sophia clenched her fists. "What do you mean by that?" Camille's smile was crooked. "Oh honey, you really think he'll chase after you? Ethan doesn't wait for anyone. If you won't play the game, he'll find someone who will. Sophia felt a tightness in her chest, but her demeanor stayed cool. You seem really concerned about me. Just being realistic, Camille said with a knowing smile. Or maybe, you're the one concerned because you realize Ethan chose someone he has no control over. Sophia narrowed her eyes. You have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, I do, Camille said, her grin widening. And you know what? I'm not sure where this is headed, but at least I'm not wasting my days trying to manipulate others into feeling superior. Camille let out a quick laugh. Do you really think he cares about you? Sophia held back her anger, taking a step forward. I know he cares, but unlike you, I don't have to prove anything to anyone. Before Camille could respond, Sophia turned and walked away, her head held high. She didn't know everything about Ethan, but she knew he wasn't like Camille. And in that moment, she realized she wasn't running anymore. She was ready to face whatever came next. Sophia couldn't sleep that night. She knew Ethan was at the hotel restaurant having dinner with investors, and she realized she needed to talk to him. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed a coat and left her room, determined to get to the restaurant. She saw him the moment she walked in. Ethan was sitting at the main table, speaking with a couple of men in suits. He looked serious and focused. But then, as if he sensed her presence, his gaze met hers, and in that moment, the rest of the room seemed to disappear. Neither of them knew who moved first, but suddenly they were standing face to face, locked in a stillness that felt almost electric. We need to talk, she said, her voice steady. Ethan studied her face for a moment before turning to the investors. Excuse me, gentlemen, he said, before standing and taking her hand, leading her out. They walked silently through the hotel halls until they reached a private balcony. The cool night air brushed over her skin, but all that mattered was the man standing before her. Ethan tucked his hands into his pockets and observed her carefully. What's going on? Sophia took a deep breath. You were right. Ethan frowned. About what? About me. About how I keep running away. He stayed silent, waiting. Sophia looked up at the sky for a moment before returning his gaze. I never let anyone get close to me because I was afraid they'd leave. But you? She swallowed, her voice trembling slightly. You made me want to stay. Ethan didn't move, but something in his eyes shifted. I tried to tell myself it didn't mean anything, but it does, and as much as it scares me, I don't want to run anymore. The silence between them felt like it held the weight of the world. Without a word, Ethan stepped forward and kissed her. It was a kiss that spoke of everything they had both been holding back. Sophia felt his hands on her face, his lips pressing against hers with such intensity that she forgot about everything. The hotel, Paris, the world. In that moment, he was the only thing that existed. Sophia's heart continued to race as they pulled apart. Ethan rested his forehead against hers, smiling slightly. Finally, he whispered. She laughed, feeling warmth in her chest. Finally, Sophia knew this wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning, and she was ready for whatever came next. Sophia hadn't stopped smiling since Ethan kissed her. Everything around her seemed different, as if the world had suddenly changed colors. She never imagined she'd be here, never thought she'd fall for someone like Ethan Carter. But it happened, and for the first time, she didn't want to run away. The next morning, she walked downstairs for breakfast, and as expected, Ethan was already there, sitting at a table reserved for them. Good morning, Martinez, he said with a small smile as she sat across from him. You're in a good mood, she remarked. Sophia took a bite of her toast before responding. Let's just say it's unusual. Ethan smirked and took a sip of his coffee. So, how are you feeling after last night? Sophia sighed and crossed her arms on the table. To be honest, I'm still a little confused. I've never done this before, Ethan. I've never let anyone get this close. He studied her face for a moment before responding, neither have I. Sophia blinked, taken aback. Ethan was always so confident. She never believed he would be venturing into unfamiliar territory. So, does it mean we're? She trailed off. Ethan raised his eyebrows. Together? She took a deep breath. Yes. He put down his coffee cup, meeting her gaze directly. If you want to, Martinez. Sophia grinned. I do. Ethan leaned over the table, his face softening. Great. He gently squeezed her hand. Sophia's heart raced, but she knew the battle wasn't over. Ethan's world was complicated, and not everyone was thrilled about them being together. That afternoon, as she walked into the hotel, a cold rush of tension washed over her. People had been whispering about her since the trip began, but now things had escalated. The looks were colder, the expressions nastier. Then, as she passed the reception, she overheard two women talking. Have you seen the news? Yeah, it's a scandal. Sophia frowned and grabbed her phone. She opened the browser, and as soon as she saw the headline, her blood ran cold. CEO Ethan Carter in scandalous romance with former housekeeping employee. Her shock deepened as she read the details. According to insiders, Sofia Martinez, a former maid at the Carter Hotel, had been taken on a lavish trip to Paris and promoted under strange circumstances. Sources claimed she was leveraging her relationship with the CEO to advance her career. Sophia's breath quickened. This wasn't just gossip. It was an outright attack. Her phone vibrated. "Ethan, where are you?" She swallowed, her hands trembling, and replied, "At the reception." Minutes later, Ethan appeared, holding his phone with a furious look on his face. "I'm going to find out who did this." Sophia laughed bitterly. "Do you really need to find out? This has Camille written all over it." Ethan clenched his jaw. "I figured that." Sophia took a deep breath. "I expected people to talk. But this is different," Ethan said, taking her hand. "I'll handle it." That night, Ethan organized a press conference at the hotel. Sophia walked into the room, finding reporters everywhere. Flashes going off, cameras rolling. She had never been more terrified in her life. But then she saw Ethan on stage, steady and unshakable. He took the microphone and began. "I know many of you came here because of the rumors about me and Sofia Martinez," Ethan said, his voice strong. "So, let me clear something up." The room fell silent. Ethan stared straight into the cameras. "Sofia Martinez was not promoted because of her relationship with me. She was promoted because she is undeniably brilliant and has proven time and time again that she deserves her place in this world." Sophia felt a lump form in her throat. Ethan continued, his gaze firm. "And for those of you who think this is a scandal, I don't care. I've never feared public opinion, and I'm not about to start now." He glanced at Sophia. "I chose to be with her, and I'm not going to apologize for it." Sophia's eyes welled with tears. Ethan had just put everything on the line for her. At that moment, she realized it didn't matter what people said. It didn't matter what they tried. They would face it together. After the press conference, Ethan walked up to her. "What did you think?" Sophia laughed, her heart still racing. "You're completely crazy." He smiled. "And you're still here." She smiled back, clutching his face in her hands. "Always." Without hesitation, she kissed him, not caring about the flashes or who was watching. For the first time, Sophia knew she belonged there. No one was going to take that away from her. Sophia never expected her life to change so dramatically in such a short period of time. Few weeks ago, she was cleaning hotel rooms and working double shifts to make ends meet. Now, she was in Paris, in Ethan Carter's arms, and her name was all over the news as the woman who won the heart of the rich CEO. What had seemed like a distant fantasy was now her reality, and she had no regrets. The next morning, Sophia woke up to her phone constantly buzzing. Messages from Nancy, hotel staff, and unknown numbers, some complimenting her, others calling her an opportunist who simply got lucky. But none of it mattered. What mattered was that, for the first time, she didn't feel isolated. She went down for breakfast, and as usual, Ethan was sitting at their reserved table. This time, he looked more relaxed. "Did you sleep well?" he asked as she sat down. Sophia took a sip of her coffee, grinning. "Better than the last couple of nights. I bet your name is in every newspaper." He tilted his head. "And yours." She rolled her eyes. "You didn't have to do that press conference, you know." "I did." Sophia sighed as she took a bite of her croissant. "You always like to complicate things, don't you?" Ethan smiled. "Always." Sophia laughed, but her smile faded when she noticed Camille enter the room. The blonde was stunning, but her expression was colder than ever. Camille walked straight to their table and paused beside Ethan. "Can we talk?" Camille asked. Ethan sipped his coffee and raised an eyebrow. "If it's another one of your speeches, I'm not interested." Camille tried to smile, glancing at Sophia. "This isn't a speech. I just want to clear a few things up." Sophia crossed her arms. "Oh, now you want to talk? After trying to publicly damage my reputation?" Camille sighed. "Sophia, understand, what I did wasn't personal." Sophia let out a surprised laugh. "Oh, really? Spreading lies about me to the world was just a small detail?" Camille pressed her lips together. "Those weren't lies. They were inconvenient truths." Ethan slouched in his chair. "Camille, if you have something to say, just say it." Camille took a deep breath and looked directly at Sophia. "You've changed the rules of the game. This world doesn't handle change well. But even if you've won this battle, remember, people will always try to pull you down." Sophia stared at her with steady determination. "So, basically, you're telling me to be careful?" Camille nodded. "And prepare yourself. What's happened so far is only the beginning." Ethan stood up, his voice firm. "Sophia doesn't have to worry about anything. She's not alone." Camille looked at him for a long moment before stepping back. "Good luck to both of you." Then she turned and walked away. Sophia exhaled, not realizing she had been holding her breath. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. "Are you all right?" She looked at him, smiling. "Yes, because I'm confident that whatever comes, we'll face it together." He squeezed her hand, and in that moment, Sophia knew that nothing could bring them down. Sophia's last day in Paris passed in a blur. She and Ethan attended more events, met more people, and gradually, she began to feel accepted. People were starting to respect her. On the final evening, Ethan took her to dinner at one of the best restaurants in the city. The atmosphere was amazing. The food was perfect, but Sophia couldn't stop thinking about the man sitting across from her. "What happens once we go home?" she asked. Ethan took a sip of his wine, studying her for a moment before replying, "What do you want to happen?" Sophia paused. She'd always worked hard to carve out her own space, but now things had changed. "I like what I do, but I think I'm ready for something new." Ethan smiled. "Then I have a proposal." She raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." He put his drink down, took her hand, and said, "Work with me. Not as a hotel employee, but as a partner. You have talent, Sophia. We can build something together." Her heart skipped a beat. "Are you serious? I never say anything I don't mean." She took a deep breath. This was a big step, but looking into his eyes, she knew her answer. "I accept." Ethan smiled. "Great choice." They clinked glasses, and Sophia felt like her life was about to change forever. Sophia took a deep breath as she stepped off the private plane. She was back to reality, but it felt different now. As they got into the car, Ethan grabbed her hand. "Are you ready to begin this new chapter?" he asked. She smiled. "I've never been more ready for anything in my life." He kissed her deeply, and Sophia realized that her destiny wasn't just about cleaning hotel rooms. Her future was with Ethan. Sophia never expected her life to change so quickly, from being a hotel maid to working with one of the most powerful people in the culinary world. But more than that, she hadn't expected to fall in love with him. Over the last few months, their friendship had grown into something deeper. They traveled the world together, worked on new projects, and, most importantly, had each other. Or so she thought. Ethan still had surprises in store for her. One special night, they were at a beautiful restaurant by the sea. The soft lights, the music, everything was perfect. Sophia turned to Ethan. "You're unusually quiet tonight." He looked at her, holding his wine glass, and smiled. "Maybe I'm waiting for the right moment." She frowned. "The right moment for what?" Ethan shook his head. "Just wait." Before she could ask more, a violinist entered the room, filling the air with sweet music. Something felt different about tonight. Ethan took her hand. "Martinez." She turned to him, noticing his serious expression. "Do you remember the first time we met?" Sophia laughed. "It's hard to forget. I was sleeping in your bathroom." Ethan smiled. "Yes. And from that moment, I knew my life would never be the same." Sophia's heart skipped a beat. Ethan stood up, pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and the whole restaurant went quiet. He knelt before her. "You've challenged me since day one. You made me laugh when I thought I had forgotten how. You taught me that life is more than just work and status." Sophia's eyes welled up with tears. "I'm not the easiest man in the world," Ethan continued. "But since you came into my life, I've learned that I don't want a future without you." He opened the box to reveal a beautiful ring. "Sophia Martinez, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down her face as her heart raced. "Yes." Ethan grinned, slipped the ring on her finger, and kissed her passionately. The entire restaurant burst into applause, but all Sophia could feel was him, his love, filling her heart. 2 months later, Sophia walked down the aisle in a flower-filled garden, dressed in white, holding her bouquet with shaking hands. The wedding was outdoors, with the sea in the distance, and the golden sun setting over the horizon. It felt like a scene from a fairy tale. At the end of the aisle stood Ethan, in his suit, smiling at her. As she walked towards him, tears fell from her eyes. Each step reminded her of where she had come from, what she had faced, and how, against all odds, love had found a way. When she reached Ethan, he took her hand and whispered, "You look beautiful." She smiled. "And you're officially stuck with me forever." He chuckled and squeezed her hand. "And I couldn't be happier." The ceremony was emotional. They exchanged vows, promised eternal love, and finally, the officiant said, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Ethan wasted no time. He pulled her close and kissed her deeply. The guests cheered, and petals filled the air. Sophia knew this moment would stay with her forever. 2 weeks after their wedding, Sophia stood in their bedroom, staring at a pregnancy test. Her eyes went wide. 2 lines. 2. "Oh my God," she whispered. She was pregnant. Shock and joy flooded her heart. She and Ethan were planning to have a baby. When Ethan walked in and saw her reaction, he frowned. "What's wrong?" Sophia held up the test for him to see. He blinked, stared at it for a moment, and then his eyes widened. "Is this?" Sophia grinned. "Yes." For a moment, Ethan stood still, then took a step forward, cupped her face in his hands, and kissed her with deep passion. His eyes filled with tears as he pulled away. "We're having a baby," he murmured. Sophia laughed with pure happiness. "We are." Ethan wrapped his arms around her. "I love you." She rested her head against his chest. "I love you too." In that moment, Sophia realized this was just the beginning of a new adventure. A new chapter of love, growth, and family. This time, she wasn't alone. With Ethan, they were a family. What are your thoughts on Sophia and Ethan's journey? We'd love to hear from you in the comments. On a scale of 0 to 10, how would you rate their story? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to stay updated with all our latest content. For more heartfelt stories, click here on the final screen.